What's up, fight fans? This is Counterpunched with Counterpunched Boxing News. And I have some new news concerning Errol, the truth, Spence. And I want to get this off my chest and let everyone know where I stand with Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence is a good fighter. I'm not sure about a great fighter or a special fighter, but a good fighter. I think when he was hungry for a certain segment of time in his career, he wanted to fight guys the likes of Thurman. He wanted that fight very badly, or anyone else in the division, and he could never get Thurman due to inactivity or injury on Thurman's behalf. And of course, being overlooked by Thurman, because Thurman wanted other things. He wanted bigger things. He got the Pacquiao fight, but that's Thurman. Errol Spence did fight, however, Kell Brook, Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia. And 2 out of 3 of those fighters, he was favored to beat both of those guys, and he beat all 3. I like his work to the body. I like how Errol Spence attacks, relentless attacks, okay? He's a tough fighter, for what I know. He's a very fortunate and blessed fighter. It's grace that's anointed this man. Think of the wreck that he was in. He comes out with a couple broken teeth, that's all. You know what I mean? Instead of dislocated limbs and fractures of, all types of bones in your body. He came out victorious in that aspect, and I think he got a slice of life and a wake-up call. But that's another story. But it also adds to the story of Errol Spence and the truth behind Errol Spence. He fought Kell Brook. That was his first for the IBF. Kell Brook had that title after Kell Brook was beaten for the first time in his career to Gennady Golovkin. And he came back down to defend his title. Everyone knows the fluctuations in weight coming from a guy that wasn't really keen on making 147, but he did it anyway, and he fought Errol Spence anyway. The young, hungry Errol Spence in 2017, over 3 years ago, people, mind you, keep that in mind. He was broken down by Errol Spence. Errol Spence showed that he had another gear and another gear and another gear, and he had to change gears to beat someone like Kell Brook, because Kell Brook's a pot-shotting, quick, crafty fighter. And he showed him why. He earned that IBF belt. I think he stopped him in 10 or whatnot, and he broke another portion of his socket, his eye socket, the other socket. Very victorious. But it just shows the fighter that he was, and he was taking guys out, knocking guys out, being very successful against guys like Floyd Mayweather. That particular Errol Spence was soon diminishing. Let me continue. The reason why it's diminishing, because he went in there and fought Shawn Porter. Okay, he's fought other guys. Don't get me wrong. He's fought other guys like Lamont Peterson. Lamont Peterson is really he's a welterweight, but more like he's a 140. He's a junior welterweight. And he was a lot smaller, and, Errol Spence was just too powerful for him, guys like that. And I like Lamont Peterson, but he's out of the picture now. He beat guys like that. But those top guys that he wanted, okay, those fights were it was a challenge for him, okay? It was a challenging fight. Shawn Porter, I think he was beating him up until the knockdown. I think he needed the knockdown because it was a back-and-forth action fight. I love that fight. He looked like a good fighter. Again, not a special fighter, not a great fighter, but a good fighter, and he came out victorious. Great, again, a great performance. Danny Garcia, okay? Danny Garcia is a guy that's been beaten by all the top guys, okay? Errol Spence showed me that he's a top guy at the welterweight. Is he the best guy at the welterweight? We won't know that. Because first of all, you had Pacquiao, then you had that, ghost the elephant in the room, they called Ghost, the WBO champion, Terrence Crawford. So that should have been the next thing that should have been in mind for him until these guys went face to face and Errol Spence started talking all around the idea of fighting Terrence Crawford. And that's what made me suspicious, right? And started putting things together. Out of those three guys that he fought, Kell Brook, Shawn Porter, and Danny Garcia, he was in favor to beat all of those guys, okay? The odds were against those guys when they stepped in the ring with Errol Spence. For the first time in Errol Spence's career, the odds are not that way. It's not in his favor, but then all of a sudden, this is when you pull out numbers and figures and this Floyd Mayweather impersonation, right? You pull this rhetoric of Floyd out your mouth when you're talking about another fighter, another challenge. Okay, so this is what we have. And I don't like the idea that Errol Spence is doing this, but it makes sense. A fight with Terrence Crawford is a bad idea for Errol Spence. And he knows it. He knows because there's no guarantee this time. There's nobody hyping him up. There's no people saying, you know what, who would win between him and Terrence Crawford? No, they're trying to bridge that wedge in between these fighters, and they're doing it by marketability. Oh, well, you know what? Errol Spence is the A side, so he gets more of the money. But you're talking about money. You're not talking about the fact that these guys should fight. He wasn't talking about money with Danny Garcia, nor Shawn Porter, nor Kell Brook. Money was never an issue for Errol Spence until Terrence Crawford come knocking at his door. Then it's all about, networks. That was the first thing until we saw him on DAZN. Then you're like, well, wait a minute. You're on DAZN, but you're mad at Terrence Crawford because he's an ESPN fighter coming to your PBC Fox event? You know what I'm saying? So a lot of things were starting to come to the light. The truth about Errol Spence is his back against the wall. He will not fight Terrence Crawford, even though he'll say, I'm going to punish you, your time coming. The only time he'll fight Terrence Crawford is when Terrence Crawford is either a couple years down the line and he's decided and he's slowed down because he's went from place to place to place and did exactly what he said he was going to do at those places, and he hasn't been defeated yet. He's shown that he's a special fighter, but that's another story. Back to Errol Spence. Errol Spence knows now. Keith Thurman, that's a no-go. Manny Pacquiao's been stripped, so he's don't even have a strap no more, right? Who else? Did I say Keith Thurman already? Keith Thurman. What would you rather see, a Keith Thurman fight or an Errol Spence fight? Fighting Shawn Porter again, yeah, it'd be an action-packed fight, but it's redundant at this point, don't you think? You know what I'm saying? That, look, you want to do a rematch when there's fights, there's people that want you to fight these guys, and it just shows you that if Terrence Crawford was that much of an easy fight, he would have fought him already. If he knew 100% that he could beat Terrence Crawford, he would have fought Terrence Crawford. But the fact of the matter is he's not fighting Terrence Crawford because he knows that particular guy is a wrong guy with a wrong style for him. A rangy guy, long arms, that can scrap, that can punch, has underestimated punching power, just like Floyd did. And a lot of people don't understand when Floyd went in there and fought guys like that. You want to bring up politics as some type of barricade when it comes to Terrence Crawford. It's a no-brainer. He does not want to fight Terrence Crawford because he wants to make more money before taking on a task like Terrence Crawford. And then the idea of doing so, it buys him time to see what Terrence Crawford does in his career. Meanwhile, Terrence Crawford is fighting guys, beating guys like Khan, Brook, a guy he already fought, 3 other guys that were undefeated, okay? Mind you, 3 other guys that's been undefeated since he's been at welterweight. And you want to talk about numbers, dollars, and figures like your Floyd Mayweather. It's a clear sign to me. Errol Spence, he's going to fight your Dennis Ugas next, right? I think that fight's going to happen before Terrence gets him, because if I'm Al Heyman and I got 2 fighters that are 2 champions, I'm going to make that fight before I let Yordenis Ugas go in there against somebody like Terrence Crawford, right? He'd rather get that, he'll rather give Yordenis Ugas or Errol Spence that opportunity to fight Ugas over Ugas to Terrence Crawford, because if Terrence Crawford fights Ugas and beats Ugas, it would be a WBA and a WBO versus a WBC and an IBF. You know, and then more of that same stuff will come around. And, you know, you got 2 undisputed champions, 2 for 2. And it will be hard to decipher. You can forget about Canelo, too. That was the other guy. Canelo is at 168, and we already know what Canelo's going to do. Canelo Alvarez is at 168. Unless he wants to be dumb enough to meet Canelo Alvarez like Chavez Jr. did at 164.5 or some crazy catch weight like that. Now, he could do that, but that would be stupid too. Middleweight, I think, would be a good weight for Errol Spence because he's a big boy. Anything past that, that's in Canelo land. And in fact, that's another Canelo weight. 155, 164.5. Those are Canelo weights. Those are the weights that he knows that he can make just as easy and kick your ass just as easy. And it's not going to be for your benefit. So, I think Errol Spence would rather go up there and get that money, but the money's not available for him because Canelo, again, is fighting all the guys at 168. So what is Errol Spence really going to do? He's going to fight Ugas, and he's going to fight somebody else. Errol Spence, if he wanted to prove that he was like the top dog at 147, he would fight all the champs. You call it strap season? You know what I mean? But then you don't want to fight these guys, and you're showing it obvious on why you don't want to fight these guys or this guy. Okay? And I will come with you with another video on why he should not fight Terrence Bud Crawford. But anyway, Errol Spence's back is against the wall. His options are closing, okay, from Pacquiao to Canelo, right? It all comes back to Crawford. You guys tell me what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunched. Peace.